Ink-a-dink, 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 ink-a-dink. Wow.
Wait, okay, hold on. We're not on the air yet, but let's go ahead and let's... Should I take this, Basil? Mm-hmm. Hey, why not? Yes, Basil BuddhaCat presents. Basil, it's Newt Gingrich. Yes, Mr. Gingrich, you've been on the show twice. We've kind of gotten away from politics for a while now. We're getting on to more humane topics, like we are with Dan Lanzilotta tonight. I'm sure you're watching, so you know. He says he's announcing his engagement to the next wife.
The next wife.
Does she have a name yet? Says, nah. He hasn't found her yet, but he's ready.
Madam X.
Callista's, you know.
Yeah.
She's been around a while.
That's a hot name.
He's ready for the wife number 4. Now, is Callista in any way medically compromised? Because I remember that when you were dating your second wife, I believe it was, his first wife at the time was dying. She was.
I think he bailed out on her.
She was terminally ill.
Yeah.
And so Newt started doing the shopping.
Is that a part of? Isn't it until death do we part? Is that?
That's the creed of folks who claim to be Republicans.
Oh, okay.
So at any rate,
that's good.
Okay, we're gonna have. Oh, he hung up anyway. He didn't want to hear that apparently.
Nothing like talking to a guy who's pro-life.
Well, Basil and I, of course.
I love the name Basil. I mean, I smell like pesto.
That's Basil. But think of Basil Rathbone.
But people say Basil. They say Basil as well.
Yeah, think about
so suggestive.
Yeah, he
lives.
He's quite the cat, apparently.
He lives. That's what counts.
He does.
By celebrating doing the show, it's so. I'm touched that you've taken the time to think this through.
Although now Kristen and I have another cat now for about almost 2 months now, Walter.
Did you have Walter while you had?
No. We had Basil and Lilith. So Walter came along a couple of months ago as a wee little kitten, just about could fit in a hand. Mm-hmm. He was just barely weaned. Joined us.
Yeah, Sarah Palin likes that size because they do it like the disc, for shooting the. That's what they use up there in Alaska.
Basil says, "Don't go there, please." Okay. Basil, it's okay. It's okay. We mean no harm. We're not serious about that at all.
I've taken the Hippocratic Oath.
Okay.
Hippocratic Oath. Actually.
Hippocratic Oath. Yeah. Basil took that long ago. He gave up drinking a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, you mean you at actually in an interim life were actually a hippo? Okay. He says in an interim life he was actually a hippo, and that's where the term Hippocratic Oath came from. Because if your ancestors actually came to Earth with the Egyptians and
I was under the impression it was a Greek doctor. I must have misread something somewhere.
Yeah, Hippocrates. Basil, are you sure about that? Basil says the Greeks had nothing on the Egyptians. Matter of fact,
they stole a lot of stuff.
Matter of fact, Greeks were lacking one very important thing that the Egyptians did not lack: cats. Okay. So
they had grapes instead.
Oh, he does this to me a lot. Welcome to Basil BuddhaCat Presents. We're probably 4 or 5 minutes into the show now, at any rate. But tonight, actually today, this is our Sunday morning show, which we usually take a little bit more religious tone on, as Basil and I both consider ourselves to be devout Christians religiously and Buddhists philosophically. And of course, there's no inconsistency in that, because the Buddha and Jesus, very, very similar in their teachings, a lot of important things. In fact, some of the years that are missing from Jesus' life in the Bible, there's some historical possibility that Jesus traveled to he went eastbound and studied.
Yeah, I would
Buddhism.
imagine.
So he knows. So that's part of.
I think that's what the Zeitgeist movie is about.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So at any rate, welcome to Basil BuddhaCat Presents. Again, this morning we've got Dan Lanzilotta with us. Dan was with us Friday night doing the show. Back, we're doing a show, and what is? I noticed the other night, you had that in your pocket. What's the significance of that?
Well, like I was saying at another time with you, the elegance of the way people dress, the idea of being a class act, sort of has disappeared in the culture. Where women used to wear hats and men used to wear three-piece suits and a vest with a pocket watch and shined shoes and well-groomed haircuts, mustaches and beards.
Here we are carrying that notion on, huh?
Exactly, and I want to get back to some kind of semblance, some kind of reminder of, having a nice handkerchief
Basil
in my
just
pocket.
asked me, he's asking me a question. He's asking me, are all my friends as frumpy as me? Look, just because you get taken care of, now understand that cats have a very complicated lifestyle. It's all right. It's okay. I don't mean to disparage you, Basil.
Going back to that premise about cats and
cats
people.
have very, very complicated lifestyles. They spend their time sleeping, eating, sleeping, eating. Occasionally they'll get up and strut around the house a little bit.
Right.
Look out a window, lie down, find a warm spot in the sun. They'll sleep. They'll eat.
Did he respond to his name when you called him? Like a dog? I mean,
he says, "What do you think I am, a dog?"
No, I'm just curious.
No, he doesn't know. He says, cats are very, and we've got behind the camera, we've got our cameraman is actually Snarky, who in fact is actually one of the dogs belonging to the Bush family, the Herbert Walker Bush family, not any of the kids.
Not the Bush Bean cat. No.
No. Although they fart gold bullion, but so Basil has Snarky as our cameraman, and you'll have to watch the end credits because Snarky is a particular breed of dog that, I can't go into detail verbally on the show, but you'll just have to watch the end credits. But he's, don't focus, Danny, Snark hound. Okay, that was too soft for the audience, I hope. So at any rate, Basil, he leads a very complex life, as do most cats, most house cats. They eat, they sleep, they eat, they poop.
That's important.
Although
because that's sort of no pun intended.
No.
That's sort of been eliminated from human experience.
Yeah.
That idea of
Well, we had our good dear friend Marty Heiser, who has his own show on Comcast on, and Marty was somehow under the impression the cats play with their feces. No, what they do, and we had to point this out to him, was the cats use their cat pan and use their paw to cover it up. Because they're
how smart is that?
Yeah, they don't want.
It's like flushing.
Exactly. It's flushing, only not wasteful of water.
Exactly. That's why I propose human litter boxes.
Okay.
I mean, and in fact, there is the waterless toilet now.
Waterless toilet. I've heard of
that. There are very specialized toilets that actually burn everything instantaneously in a chamber, and it just vaporizes and it's gone.
Huh.
So there's all kinds of issues and solutions to getting rid of that kind of waste without wasting water. So we are onto something.
Now, I've been to Rhode Island a number of times, to Misquamicut Beach. Kids there years ago. Kristen and I have been there more recently, and they've got a big building where you go to the bathroom, and apparently it's a waterless, of course, because they don't want to have to pipe in water and and all that stuff, and the waste decomposes down underneath
into methane gas.
Yeah, it decomposes the methane gas, comes out through the pipes that are tall, and I guess periodically they have to go in there and what tiny bits left over, they'll clear out of there and take somewhere to do something with.
And how are they doing that?
I don't know, but it's the way you have.
Not my area of expertise. But.
No, sure. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, but that's how they dispose of waste without having toilets that you have to use water in.
Well, it's a very important part of the function of being human.
It's sort of a 20.
We don't defecate as much as we should in the culture. I mean, it's elimination of all the waste products that are not utilized by the body, where the nutrients are not extracted.
Basil's going on one explanation.
It's a fascinating system, the human body.
Basil's never thought about that, although he certainly thinks about a lot of things. But he wants a little bit of a clarification on that. What do you mean by people don't produce or go and let go often enough?
I would say, for me personally, I need to do that at least 3 times a day because I'm eating the proper foods, the proper fiber, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, green vegetables.
Good quality food.
And that's I'm absorbing the nutrients. My body is absorbing the nutrients. I'm getting the right kinds of foods to live. And for the most part, people are not getting rid of that. And that's getting stored in the intestine and impacted and not eliminating. And that's where diseases manifested. So a lot of people who are obese, they have complications, and has a lot to do with that. And the way we sit on our toilets is also an issue. If you know the Arab squat, it opens up that part of the body, and you can clear out. People are not drinking enough clean water, several times a day.
Okay, Basil's proud to say, he says he's very, very proud to say that even though he's got a big puff of fur all around him, that underneath that big puff of fur, he's almost skin and bones. He's very, very slender underneath that.
So it's all show.
It's all show.
Yeah.
He's got. Oh, you can see. Look at the coat of fur.
I see that. It's
it's just amazing.
It's quite amazing. Quite amazing. I feel like akin to him with my own massive amount of hair on my head. At this age of my life.
Okay, and he says he's quite taken by you. He says
I could totally feel the energy from the picture. I mean, and I think we have the same color eyes.
He says his co-host, interpreter and gopher, also, his hair just lies kind of like a little life to it, but it's sort of flat. Says your hair is the cat's meow.
Thank you. That makes me feel good. Oh yeah, it's totally it's like being a peacock. This is my way of attracting people into my life because it's like almost like a human interest story.
Yeah, people will stop and say, "Wow, that's a head of hair."
If it was the 60s or 70s, I would have just been part of the the woodwork. But now, they see a guy with this much hair, and because it's curly. It's a little tighter tonight.
Kind of a rarity, yeah.
Today. So when the curls are a little bit more loose, it's a little bit longer. But I get stopped all the time for Howard Stern, Kramer, all kinds of. It's been very interesting to have this much hair.
Kramer.
In this time, it's like I'm living an interesting life just with my hair. But I get all kinds of complaints about it as well. Like go get a haircut.
Really?
Yeah. And I tell people I cut my hair only twice a year. My birthday and Christmas. So my birthday was in the beginning of May.
Yeah, so you're about halfway, yeah.
And they said, well, you didn't get a haircut. I said, oh, I must have missed the date. And the next haircut is scheduled for Christmas. So I guess I have to do it Christmas. So, but it's fun to have this much hair now. I'm enjoying it.
Okay.
It's like the last hurrah,
That's pretty amazing. And okay, we have a caller in.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it's yes. Oh, okay. It's someone that's called in on the show before. Jerry from South Carolina. Jerry's called in. Jerry called in during the primaries. We talked a little bit about the political climate in South Carolina and the primaries and things of that nature. And Jerry, do you have something to add to the show? A question for Basil? A question for Dan? A comment? Okay. Jerry says, get a haircut.
I am raising funds for that very idea. And if he wants to send a check in any amount, we'll be happy for that.
Okay, Jerry Basil wants to pass along a thought because on the show where Jerry called in, Jerry and Basil had some disagreements on some subjects.
I would imagine.
Jerry and Basil actually invited Jerry to have his wife, I think, Jerry, what's your wife's name again? Ella Rise.
Ella Rise, wow.
Yep. Basil invited Ella Rise, and since Jerry and he couldn't get along apparently, he invited Jerry to have Jerry's wife Ella Rise go on Facebook and Facebook friend Basil, and they could carry on a conversation. Basil's saying that the offer is still open to Ella Rise, or he says, or are you hogging the computer, going on Newsmax and going on Conservative Bite? Those are a couple of right-wing rags that Basil likes to blog on and doesn't go there. Okay. Thanks for calling. Basil goes on these conservative websites. One of them is Newsmax, which is a more traditional Republican, what Basil calls an internet rag, and also Conservative Bite. And Basil will go on there because he noticed that people will be on this site, and one of them will say something derogatory about the President of the United States. And the next 40 people, the blog will basically say, yeah, Jimmy's right, and they'll add something else. So there's like a gang, a group session in terms of trying to say as many bad things about the President of the United States as they can. Not because he's black, mind you, but because he's from Kenya. Not that he's black.
Oh, they're birthers? Is that what they are?
Oh, they're birthers and then some.
Wow. Right.
So Basil likes to go on there, and Basil doesn't go on there to. He's not there to be a what's the term? Not a mole, but people that go on a blog to try to bring everybody down, to try to make everybody feel lesser human beings. Basil goes on there because he just wants to very clearly correct them on things that
we need that. We need balance,
Yeah, so he goes on there and he puts his he sticks his paw in, but I have to help him with his typing on the keyboard because
I would imagine
if cats were considered special in any way, they would have keyboards that are adaptable to them. They don't. So Basil has what he describes as being furry, galumphy paws.
Right.
So I help him with his keyboard work and his spelling occasionally, because his spelling is not that great, and his paws.
Well, there's spell correcting on things like that.
Yeah, but Basil needs a little help just in getting his thoughts together and out there onto the internet.
As long as he has someone like you to help out. I mean,
that's part of what
family is. That's what we're talking about.
That's part of what we do as a family.
Having that kind of connection, having that kind of support system, and it's beautiful that he had that in his life.
Yeah. See, Basil says he's okay. He says he's really missing, hearing this conversation, he's really missing what would have been in his life the importance of knowing who his parents were, who his grandparents were. His only connection, in fact, to other cats are, of course, the other cats that he's known in his life.
Right.
And the cats that he considers to be his ancestors, the ones that came from somewhere else and got the Egyptians rolling on those pyramids, and the Mayans and the Incas on their pyramids, and all these great things that the cats brought to really get what he would call a really backwards civilizations, very backwards civilizations rolling, and make them a little more mentally sharp than they were. Okay, he says he doesn't think that we've really progressed much from there. In fact, in some cases, we as a people, as a species, have perhaps even regressed a little bit.
Just a little.
Yeah.
Although
now remember, Basil, the Egyptians had some pretty bad habits. They had slavery. They had a lot of things. They did a lot of things that that we wouldn't be proud of in modern day on modern day Earth. So I think you need to a little credit where credit is due.
I can't agree with that, but we're not doing too well ourselves.
Okay.
Okay. But they were very good at mummies, and they had great tombs, and they did some good things. They had, it was a great culture. So, I don't know. I mean, perhaps we have a lot to learn from them that we're not paying attention to. That's what I would try to tell.
Yeah. That's a train, Basil, coming by. That's not the. Okay, that's not that. Okay.
It's not my cell phone.
No. Okay. It's not another ringtone on the Basil phone.
Oh,
either.
It's not?
No, that was the train going by.
Wow.
Because our studio is right by the train tracks.
Yeah, that's not good.
Okay. Okay. You were continuing. Let's go back, if we can, to family, because we like to do our Sunday shows a little bit more in a religious tone.
Well, let's just say that the family unit, everyone should have a pet. That's how I feel. I had pets.
Yep, Basil says he's got two.
Pets is such an important part of family
Basil
life.
says he's got two pets. He's got Kristen and me, and
it works
we
both
add a lot
ways.
to his life.
It works both ways. I don't know what cats call their pets. I mean, they must have a word for it.
He's got a word for it. David and Kristen. That's his word for his pets.
Wow. So when he wants you, does he call you Dave? I mean, or just what does he say?
We've always communicated telepathically. That's our means.
No, I
and
mean,
then, of course,
did you have pets growing up?
I had in Miami, Florida, ages, I'm going to say 5 to 10, let's say. There was a stretch in there where I had 6 cats, not at the same time, 6 cats in the span of about a year and a half. Miami is not a very forgiving place for cats that go outdoors.
I would imagine.
Back
of then
things.
Even. Wow.
Alligators, this is back in the 1950s Miami, so it was kind of a little bit more. The neighborhoods, the houses were.
Well, I lived right next door to Mrs. McCarthy, and she was a cat lady.
Yeah.
And she had lots of cats.
Yeah.
And then just about half a block from my house was another cat lady, Mrs. Harrison. And I mean, they were really. I mean, you could write movies about these folks.
Basil says that's his least favorite president, Benjamin Henry Harrison.
Well, there was probably no relation.
Probably no relation.
But I have probably hundreds and hundreds of stories of being 12 and 13 and, egging on the cat people. And they were just so interesting, those two ladies, Mrs. McCarthy and Mrs. Harrison. Especially Mrs. Harrison. Her house is very much like a spook house. Every kid has, in a neighborhood. And there were always dozens of cats, and she would leave food outside, and we'd try to sneak in the backyard, and she'd come out screaming or something, or we would drive her crazy.
Yeah.
She always had like layers of coats on in July, and very interesting behavior for that time.
Now, this is where you were growing up in
the Bronx.
In the Bronx, okay. Yeah. Now Basil watched. You like that show too, where you talked about growing up in the Bronx and your grandma growing a lot of what you ate in the backyard.
Well, a lot of those cats were in our backyard, but we had a dog.
Yeah.
We always had a dog. I only had a cat once personally in my life, and her name was Kitty because I couldn't think of a name, and I was living in Brooklyn at the time.
Basil says a little gauche, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
And Kitty was really interesting, and I had a live-work situation where half of my loft was where I worked, and half of it was where I lived. And I put up this big curtain, something like around here. And the cat would start from one end of the loft and just run and jump on the couch, and just stick to the curtain like.
That's a little bit like what Walter does. Walter.
It was fascinating, and the cat would just stay there a few seconds and then drop off.
On to the next adventure.
Yeah, it was fascinating to watch. It was. Who could that be?
Okay, hold on. Basil BuddhaCat presents. It's Ron Paul, who's been on the show, of course. We did a couple shows. We had Ron on for a couple shows. And actually, Basil sent me up to New Hampshire as an emissary for him during the Republican primary week in New Hampshire, right, a couple days leading up to the primary there, and I got an opportunity to go up the northern part of Lake Winnipesaukee and heard Ron Paul speak on a Sunday afternoon. I got a chance to, on a Saturday morning, go to another town more on the northern end of Lake Winnipesaukee and hear Newt Gingrich speak and watch Newt Gingrich stand in a military museum in front of a tank that had a turret that, what did he say?
I would imagine that Ron Paul's an animal rights advocate, right?
Well,
being a doctor.
Basil's saying that Newt Gingrich was standing in front of a tank with a turret that Newt wishes he had. So at any rate, yes, you want to talk, have something to add to the conversation, Mr. Paul? Congressman Paul? He's saying that, he's saying that if Katz were allowed to vote, he'd be the candidate.
Probably so.
Well, I think that's a reasonable...
I would imagine that because he's sort of an independent figure.
Independent.
And the Cats are very independent, and I would see the similarities in voting for someone like that.
He says he doesn't sleep as much. He doesn't eat as much.
And he doesn't use a litter box.
He doesn't use
Or does he? It's a question I would bring up.
He trained his kids. He says he actually trained his kids. Rand is his son, who's a senator.
Right. Without diapers, right?
He trained Rand and the other kids. He's an MD. He's a doctor.
Right, of course, yes.
He trained all his kids in the art of using a litter box. That's pretty interesting. Okay, so I think it's safe to say that it's pretty much agreement around the table here that if Katz were allowed to vote, you would be the Republican candidate, and maybe even perhaps on your way to the White House. And wouldn't that be a positive?
I mean,
thing?
That's an interesting idea. I see dogs more as being Republican, and I see cats being
probably
more Democratic,
so. Okay.
independent.
Thank you for calling in, Dr. Congressman Paul. Thank you.
It's fascinating how
we're going to have to shut it off there because
the amazing amount of talent that calls in. It's phenomenal.
Yep. We're coming to the end of the show. This has been Basil BuddhaCat Presents. I'm David Stevenson, Basil's co-host, interpreter, and chief gopher. Basil BuddhaCat, center slot.
Unbelievable.
And our good and dear friend Dan Lanzilotta.
I just love this. This is fantastic.
Enjoy your Sunday.
Unbelievable.
Okay. Got to scratch him behind the head a little bit too.
Yeah.
Okay. Enjoy your day. That's it.
How many of these have you done?
Let's see. Basil's done about 25 shows.
Really?
Yeah. We had 2 shows each with. Started with Michelle Bachmann, right after the Iowa primary, and we had a little discussion about Michelle's her gaffes, where she went to a little town in Iowa and told everybody there she was so proud to be in the hometown and birthplace of John Wayne, when in fact the town was the birthplace of John Wayne Gacy.
Oh God!
So, who killed kids, cut them up and ate them.
Murderer, right?
Yeah. And also she went up to Concord, New Hampshire, and misrepresented that as being the starting point of the American Revolutionary War, which is actually Concord, Massachusetts.
That's not good.
So we did 2 shows with Michelle Bachmann. We did a couple shows with Sarah Palin. We had Newt Gingrich on 2 shows, Ron Paul, Rick Santorum. We had Mitt Romney on actually for a total of 4 shows. We had him twice. We went from there. We had we actually had another Basil on, a tall, statuesque Basil, and a Buddha who joined us. And Basil, as it turned out, our guest Basil, lives in Sanford, Florida.
They say they'd rob your grandma blind on Wall Street, on Wall Street. Fritter her away her Medicare on Wall Street. And Pharma Oil and their pet fox don't care if she lives in a box, so long as they wear platinum jocks on Wall Street, on Wall Street. Meow.